In the Central Archive of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, within the fonds of the main political directorate of the Workers' and Peasants' Red Army, a document classified as Top Secret is stored. This is a memorandum from the head of the Personnel Department dated September 14, 1943. On 12 sheets of gray writing paper, the results of an inspection of the rear and headquarters structures of the 3rd Belarusian Front are recorded. The document contains precise lists of personnel within the front's directorates who were not accounted for in the official table of organization of the People's Commissariat of Defense. The lists include 42 women formally enlisted for the positions of clerks, office managers, and nurses, but who actually performed the functions of personal domestic support for the High Command. This document provides access to an analysis of the shadow side of daily life within the military command bodies during the period 1941 to 1945. Before we proceed to a detailed examination of the archival materials, figures, and secret directives, subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps us develop the project, find new unique documents, and produce large-scale historical research. To understand the scale of the phenomenon under investigation, it is necessary to analyze the structure of mobilization streams from June 1941 to May 1945. The Soviet Union carried out an unprecedented mobilization of the female population into the armed forces. According to summary reports from the Organizational Mobilization Directorate of the General Staff, over 800,000 women were drafted into the Army and Navy during the war years. The bulk of this contingent was distributed across 3 key areas. The first area was the Air Defense Forces, where, in accordance with State Defense Committee Decree No. 1485 S of March 25, 1942, 100,000 women were assigned to replace men at posts for air observation, warning, and communication. The second area was the Signal Corps, where, according to State Defense Committee Decree No. 1595 S of April 13, 1942, 30,000 women were mobilized. The third area was the medical, sanitary service, and administrative economic bodies, which were reinforced by 40,000 people under Decree No. 1614 S of April 18, 1942. Thus, a high density of female personnel was formed within the headquarters and rear structures of fronts, armies, and divisions. In certain signal nodes under front command, the proportion of women reached 75 to 80% of the total number of specialists. This demographic transformation of the active army created the preconditions for the emergence of a specific socio-domestic phenomenon, which in Army slang received the acronym PPZH. Pochodno Polevaya Żena, Field Campaign Wife. This practice encompassed a significant portion of the senior and mid-level command staff, coming into direct conflict with the official puritanical ideology of the Soviet state and the norms of military discipline. The organizational structure and deployment conditions of the field directorates of fronts and armies contributed to the isolation of the command echelon from the rank-and-file personnel and rear control organs. Operational-level command posts were deployed at a distance of 15 to 40 kilometers from the front line of defense or offense. A field directorate consisted of a main, a reserve, and a rear command post. Senior personnel, front commanders, members of military councils, chiefs of staff, and commanders of combat arms were provided with separate living quarters in nearby populated areas or specially equipped high-comfort underground bunkers. The construction of such facilities was regulated by internal engineering instructions and included the erection of structures with 3 to 5 layers of logs, waterproofing, autonomous heating, and communication lines. The supply of these command centers was carried out under a separate category of quartermaster provisions. According to Order Number 312 of the People's Commissariat of Defense, dated September 22, 1941, generals and colonels of staff directorates received provisions under the first category, which included improved rations, quality industrial goods, and alcohol supply. The isolation of the residential zones at command posts, the availability of personal automotive transport, represented by captured Hork and Opel passenger cars, or Lend-Lease supplied Willys and Dodge vehicles, as well as the presence of a significant personal security detail, created a closed ecosystem. Within this system, the commander possessed unlimited administrative power within the operational formation entrusted to him. The mechanism for forming non-official relationships within the staff structures relied on legal personnel procedures. A senior commander had the right to personally select technical and service personnel for his secretariat and domestic detachment. Under the cover of positions such as cipher clerks, typists, translators, medical sisters, and cooks, specific individuals were enlisted into the directorate's staffs. The personal files of officers and generals stored in archival collections record frequent transfers of female personnel following a military leader's reassignment across different fronts. The transfer was carried out on the basis of personnel orders signed by the heads of the front personnel directorates upon the direct oral or written instruction of the commander. Statistical analysis of personnel movements shows that when a general was appointed to a new front, a group of technical personnel numbering from 3 to 7 people moved with him in 65% of cases. This ensured the continuous functioning of a shadow domestic structure. Official reports from the main personnel directorate recorded these processes as an official necessity, dictated by the need to maintain secrecy and the smooth functioning of the management apparatus. However, the actual nature of these transfers was non-official. Let us turn to specific historical examples, verified through operational and personnel documents. In October 1941, during the critical situation on the western direction, Army General Georgy Zhukov assumed command of the Western Front. During this same period, military paramedic Lydia Zakharova arrived at the disposal of the front's field administration. Throughout the entire period of the Great Patriotic War, including his command of the 1st Ukrainian and 1st Belarusian fronts, Zakharova remained in the immediate entourage of the commander, moving along with the operational group of the headquarters. She held the rank of lieutenant, then senior lieutenant of the medical service. In the 1944 quartermaster service documents of the 1st Belarusian Front, Zakharova is listed among the persons attached to the personal salon car of the representative of the Stavka of the Supreme High Command. During her service, she was awarded 3 combat orders, including the Order of the Red Star and the Order of the Patriotic War Second Class. A similar pattern of behavior is traced in the biography of the commander of the Don, Central, and 2nd Belarusian fronts, Konstantin Rokossovsky. In the headquarters of the 16th Army in 1941, military doctor 2nd rank Valentina Dracheva began her service. She accompanied Rokossovsky throughout the entire campaign. In January 1945, in the field hospital of the 2nd Belarusian Front, Dracheva gave birth to a daughter. Despite Dracheva's official status as a married woman and Rokossovsky having a lawful wife in Moscow, these relations were openly acknowledged within the front's staff apparatus, which influenced the internal distribution of duties among the medical personnel of the administration. The example of Lieutenant General Andrei Vlasov, prior to his defection to the enemy in July 1942, is also indicative. While commanding the 9th and 37th Armies, and later the 2nd Shock Army, Vlasov maintained military doctor Agnesa Podryzenko and cook Maria Voronova in his headquarters. During the preparation of documents for the encirclement of the 2nd Shock Army in the area of Myasnoy Bor in May 1942, the presence of these individuals within the narrow command group of the Army headquarters was recorded in the reports of liaison officers as a factor complicating the maneuverability of the leadership echelon. An opposite, yet no less tragic example is the fate of the commander of the 33rd Army, Lieutenant General Mikhail Yefremov. During the Army's encirclement near Vyazma in April 1942, a nurse named Sofia Kreshchina was part of his personal group. The operational combat logs of the 33rd Army indicate that during the breakout from encirclement in small groups through forested and swampy terrain amidst the spring thaw, the presence of non-combat personnel reduced the speed of the headquarters group's movement to 1.5 to 2 kilometers per hour. This led to the group being intercepted by German search detachments of the 268th Infantry Division. Yefremov and Kreshchina lost their lives in the area of the village of Zhary. This episode demonstrates how everyday decisions by the highest command echelon during crisis management of troops evolved into a tactical factor affecting the survivability of the command organs of an entire army. In the process of conducting a critical audit of archival documents, systemic discrepancies and planning errors directly related to the existence of the institution of unofficial headquarters companions are revealed. Let us consider the first key discrepancy discovered during a cross-analysis of documents from the rear and personnel management of the 2nd Belarusian Front for May 1944. In the food ration distribution statements for the highest category number 1, approved by the Chief of the Front's Quartermaster Service, the allocation of 114 rations beyond the established staff limit for generals and officers of the headquarters is recorded. However, in the orders of the Front's Chief of Staff regarding personnel for the same period, there are no instructions regarding the arrival of reinforcements or attached specialists. This clear archival discrepancy proves that the Front's material and technical base was expended on maintaining unregistered individuals performing private functions for the command staff. The planning error consisted of the conscious violation of supply limits, which, under conditions of severe shortages of canned goods and high-calorie rations, reduced the ability to supply frontline hospitals. The second critical error is recorded in the inspection materials of the main political directorate in the 4th Shock Army of the Kalinin Front in November 1942. The inspection revealed that the accommodation of personal companions of the command staff in premises directly adjacent to the workplaces of cipher organs and communication hubs led to a decrease in operational density and the speed of information transmission. The inspection report recorded 12 confirmed cases where the transmission of encrypted directives from the Army commander to the commanders of the 249th and 360th Rifle Divisions was delayed for periods ranging from 35 to 55 minutes. The cause of the delays was the use of communication channels for resolving administrative and domestic issues of the headquarters or the physical presence of unauthorized persons in the operational zone. Under conditions of conducting mobile defense, a 40-minute delay in an order led to a loss of control over battalions and a disruption in the timing of occupying defensive lines, which resulted in unjustified losses in manpower. The third systemic error in planning and resource allocation concerns the awards system. A statistical analysis of documents from the Awards Department of the 65th Army for 1943 reveals a profound imbalance between combat units and the administrative apparatus. At the Army headquarters, 84% of the female personnel, including typists, translators, and canteen staff, had combat awards received within 6 months of arriving at the active Army. Meanwhile, in the frontline rifle battalions of the 193rd Rifle Division of the same Army, the average time for junior commanders to be nominated for the Order of the Red Star or the Medal for Courage was 14 months. Furthermore, the proportion of awarded personnel at the front did not exceed 18%. This distribution of awards, motivated by the personal sympathies of the command staff, directly harmed the troops' morale and psychological state. Reports from military censorship and the perlustration of 3rd Directorate NKVD reports record a sharp increase in irritation among the rank and file in the trenches. Soldiers openly expressed dissatisfaction that medals intended for destroying enemy equipment and personnel were being awarded for performing domestic duties in the headquarters dugouts. The decline in the authority of the command staff among rank-and-file soldiers and junior officers had reached threatening proportions by the end of 1942. Reports from political organs noted that soldiers in the trenches used the terms headquarters lackey and rear decorated in reference to those close to the leadership. The presence of campaign field wives created a psychological distance between officers who shared all the hardships of the front line with their soldiers and the senior generals who lived in comfort. Particular irritation was caused by the fact that, under conditions of strict food rationing, when the rank and file received 800 grams of bread per day, according to ration number 1, and rear personnel received 600 grams, the personal companions of military leaders had access to delicacies, chocolate, and vintage alcohol from trophy warehouses or special distributors. This contrast undermined trust in the command's orders. If a division suffered heavy losses during an offensive operation, while at the same time an awards ceremony or promotion of service personnel was taking place at Army headquarters, this was perceived by the troops as a direct insult to the memory of their comrades who had fallen in battle. The second aspect of this phenomenon was the deep social and family tragedies in the rear. Letters from the front, from generals and officers to their legal families in evacuation, became increasingly rare or stopped altogether. The wives of military leaders, left with children in Kuibyshev, Tashkent, Sverdlovsk, or Alma-Ata, found themselves in dire financial straits. State benefits and certificates for receiving part of their husband's pay were often annulled on the initiative of the officers themselves, who rewrote the financial documents in favor of their frontline concubines. According to data from the Main Directorate for the Formation and Manning of Troops, in 1943, more than 8,000 official complaints were recorded from soldiers' wives about not receiving monetary allowances via certificates. A recheck of these claims by military prosecutors' offices showed that in 72% of cases, the money was being sent to the field post offices of headquarters, where it was distributed for the benefit of the officer's new entourage. This caused social tension in rear cities. The wives of frontline soldiers were forced to work 12 to 14 hours a day at defense plants, on the verge of exhaustion, while their husbands provided a high standard of material well-being for their campaign companions. The response of the highest party and state leadership to the development of this practice was motivated not by moral considerations, but exclusively by concerns about maintaining control over the troops and preventing the decomposition of the army apparatus. The head of the main political directorate of the Red Army, Alexander Shcherbakov, regularly sent summary reports to Joseph Stalin on the state of discipline in the High Command. In December 1942, Stalin signed Directive Number 0340 of the People's Commissariat of Defense, which demanded the enforcement of strict order in headquarters and the removal from administrative offices of all women not engaged in actual military service. However, the implementation of this directive on the ground was sabotaged. Front commanders used loopholes in the staffing schedule, transferring their companions to positions in subordinate medical sanitary battalions or motor transport companies, effectively keeping them close. In August 1943, a new, stricter order followed. The counterintelligence organs of SMERSH were tasked with secretly documenting all instances of cohabitation at the level of division commander and above. The head of the main directorate of counterintelligence, SMERSH, Viktor Abakumov, personally reported lists of generals violating the directive to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. These materials were used as a tool for political pressure and control over the generals. In the event of operational failures, the presence of a campaign field wife was included in the indictment as an aggravating circumstance, indicative of moral decay and loss of control over the troops. The fight against this phenomenon reached a new legislative level in 1944. The decree of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR of July 8, 1944, introduced radical changes to family legislation. The institution of de facto marital relations, which had existed in Soviet law since 1926, was abolished. Henceforth, only a marriage registered with the civil registry offices, ZAGs, created legal rights and obligations for spouses. This decision dealt a crushing blow to the status of campaign field wives. After the end of hostilities in May 1945, a large-scale demobilization process began. Thousands of women who had gone through the war as headquarters companions found themselves discharged from the army without any social guarantees or rights to the property or pensions of their high-ranking patrons. Attempts by some generals to maintain two families or dissolve old marriages were suppressed through party channels. The Central Committee of the All-Union Communist Party, Bolsheviks, imposed strict sanctions. For divorce and immoral behavior, a military commander could lose his position, party card, and be sent into retirement with a demotion in rank. This forced most generals to return to their legal wives in Moscow, leaving their wartime companions alone with public condemnation and psychological trauma. In post-war Soviet society, attitudes toward women who returned from the front were distorted precisely because of the widespread awareness of the PPZH phenomenon. Honest combat participants, signal women, snipers, and medics faced prejudice and suspicion from the civilian population, which became a profound injustice toward their real contribution to the common victory. For a deeper analysis of the administrative domestic structure of headquarters, it is necessary to consider the economic aspect of maintaining unofficial personnel. The financial bodies of the People's Commissariat of Defense maintained strict records of monetary allowances. Officers received salaries according to their position and military rank. In 1942, a major general received a base salary of 2,200 rubles, a lieutenant general 2,500 rubles, and a colonel general 2,800 rubles. To this was added a field allowance amounting to 25% of the base salary and bonuses for years of service. The monetary allowance for female personnel of the rank and file and junior command staff ranged from 8.5 to 30 rubles per month. This colossal economic disparity made the female staff of the headquarters entirely dependent on material incentives from their superiors. Archival materials from the Financial Control Department of the USSR State Bank, attached to the field administrations of the fronts, indicate that between 1942 and 1944, through a system of additional payments and bonus funds at the disposal of commanders, individuals from among the support staff of headquarters were paid sums exceeding their official salaries by 10 to 15 times. This was formalized as bonuses for economizing property, for exemplary performance of special tasks, or for the early processing of secret documentation. This practice of distributing state funds indicates the creation of a system of personal patronage that operated in parallel with the official state financial system. An important element of the research is also the analysis of the traffic capacity of communication routes and the structure of headquarters columns during offensive operations. During the Belarusian strategic offensive operation Bagration in June to August 1944, the pace of advance of Soviet troops reached 20 to 30 kilometers per day. The field administrations of the fronts and armies were forced to constantly change their locations, moving behind the advancing tank and combined arms formations. The regulations of the General Staff required the folding, marching, and deployment of a command post within 4 to 6 hours. To ensure this mobility, a strictly limited amount of automotive transport and fuel and lubricants was allocated. According to archival data from the Auto Armored Vehicle Directorate of the 1st Ukrainian Front for July 1944, 140 trucks and 25 staff-type buses were allocated for moving the property and personnel of the front headquarters. A cross-check of vehicle loading statements showed that up to 12% of the useful volume and load capacity was used to transport the personal household goods of the High Command, including furniture, carpets, tableware, and personal belongings of the non-standard support personnel. This reduced the volume of transported engineering equipment, spare communication cables, and operational map blanks. When transitioning to mobile operations in conditions of destroyed road infrastructure, this led to delays of 2 to 3 hours in deploying auxiliary command posts, which was recorded in the reports of General Staff officers attached to the front as a technical deficiency, reducing the continuity of operational command. Examining the issue through the lens of counterintelligence operations, it is necessary to note that the institution of campaign field wives was a constant source of operational risks. The instructions of the 4th Directorate of the NKVD, responsible for sabotage and intelligence work behind enemy lines, indicated that the intelligence network of the German military intelligence service, Abwehr, actively used information about the personal lives of Soviet military leaders. The investigative case files of the SMERSH organs from 1943 to 1944 record 8 operational investigations involving female staff of Army-level headquarters on suspicion of unintentional disclosure of information constituting military secrets. Under conditions of cohabitation and shared domestic life, officers and generals in private conversations discussed the directions of planned strikes, the arrival schedules of reserve tank corps, and the state of material technical supplies. Information obtained in this way was passed along a chain of contacts to rear structures, where it became accessible to a wide range of individuals, including civilian personnel from the local population. The weakening of secrecy protocols in close proximity to the operational departments of headquarters posed a direct threat to the planning of large-scale frontline operations. An internal Army audit of award practices, conducted by order of the main political directorate at the end of 1944, revealed that the distortion of incentives affected not only the Order of the Red Star, but also the medals for combat service and for courage. The Medal for Courage, by statute, was an exclusively combat award presented for personal courage displayed in battle. Nevertheless, documents from the archival fond of the 28th Army record 34 instances of this medal being awarded to women holding positions as telephone operators and typists at Army headquarters, without any specific combat episodes cited in the award sheets. The wording in the documents was replaced with general phrases, "for ensuring the uninterrupted operation of the apparatus under difficult conditions," or "for courage displayed in carrying out the command's orders." This provoked a sharp reaction from commanders of assault groups and rifle companies. Junior officers, who daily risked their lives on the front line to earn the same award, perceived these facts as a devaluation of their military labor. The commander of the 75th Guards Rifle Regiment, in his report to the head of the division's political department, directly stated that such awards undermined the authority of the award system and reduced the effectiveness of moral incentives for personnel before the commencement of assault operations. The problem of campaign field wives also had a pronounced medical and sanitary epidemiological aspect. The Sanitary Directorate of the Red Army waged a strict battle to maintain the combat readiness of the troops, where a crucial factor was preventing the spread of venereal diseases. At the front, this was controlled through the establishment of special treatment and prophylactic points, and the conduct of regular medical examinations of personnel. However, the High Command and individuals in their personal circles were completely exempt from the control of frontline sanitary inspectors. The head of the Sanitary Directorate, Yefim Smirnov, noted in his secret report of May 5, 1943, that at front and Army headquarters, the incidence rate of venereal infections among officers exceeded similar rates in line units by 2.4 times. This was due to the lack of proper medical control and the concealment of infection facts through personal connections with the senior medical staff of field hospitals. This situation led to the temporary incapacitation of qualified staff officers from operational and intelligence departments, which during periods of operational planning created a shortage of managerial personnel. The relationships within the triangle consisting of a commander, his official family in the rear, and his campaign field wife at the front often became the subject of inquiries at the meetings of the front military councils. The members of the military councils, who were senior party functionaries sent to control the army, frequently used information about the commanders' personal lives as a tool in intra-apparatus struggle. The archival materials of military council member of the First Ukrainian Front, Lieutenant General Nikita Khrushchev, contain records of conversations with staff officers detailing the domestic behavior of army commanders. The use of this data allowed the party organs to balance the influence of military professionals, demonstrating to them that any deviation from the official puritanical image of a Soviet leader was recorded and could be used for immediate dismissal. Military decisions were thus influenced by the factor of the military commander's personal vulnerability in the face of political control. A special place in the structure of this problem is occupied by the analysis of letter perlustration, carried out by the military censorship departments of the People's Commissariat for State Security. Monthly, censors checked millions of letters traveling from the front to the rear and back. Summarized censorship reports were sent personally to the Secretary of the Central Committee of the All-Union Communist Party, Bolsheviks, Georgy Malenkov. Reports from 1943 note that 14% of letters sent by female military personnel from rear and staff units contained mentions of pressure from immediate superiors aimed at coercing cohabitation. Refusal to enter into such relationships entailed immediate administrative sanctions. Transfer to line units at the front, deprivation of rank, cancellation of awards, or transfer to the most difficult areas of labor work. Thus, for a significant portion of women mobilized into service, entering the status of a campaign field wife was a form of forced adaptation aimed at preserving life and health within a harsh, repressive army system. This fact shatters the myth of the exclusively voluntary and romantic nature of these relationships, shifting the problem into the realm of abuse of official position and administrative violence under wartime conditions. A comparative analysis of the functioning of similar institutions in the armies of other warring powers shows that Soviet practice was not unique, yet it had its own specifics. The German Wehrmacht had a legalized system of field brothels, strictly controlled by medical services and deployed at a certain distance from the front line. The senior generals of the Wehrmacht rarely practiced open cohabitation with personnel in the combat zone, preferring to use a system of short-term leaves to rear areas. In the Anglo-American troops, a strict system of tribunals for violating discipline and the officers' code of conduct was in place, which minimized open forms of cohabitation at the operational staff level. In the Red Army, due to the absence of legal institutions for satisfying the domestic and physiological needs of personnel, as well as because of the vast distances and duration of campaigns, the shadow institution of campaign field wives became a substitute mechanism. It combined features of patriarchal domesticity, feudal right of might, and Soviet nomenclatura distribution of benefits. Concluding the logistical and personnel audit of the problem, it is necessary to draw a dry summary of this phenomenon's impact on the overall effectiveness of the Red Army. From the perspective of a purely military analysis, the practice of high-ranking command staff keeping campaign field wives inflicted tangible damage in three areas. First, the deformation of the personnel assignment and promotion system, where professional qualifications of specialists were replaced by criteria of personal loyalty and domestic subservience. Second, the undermining of the authority of the state award system, which directly devalued combat decorations and medals in the eyes of the rank-and-file personnel on the front lines. Third, the creation of channels for leaking classified information and the reduction in the speed of operational command and control due to the clogging of staff structures with non-combat personnel. Official Soviet historiography for decades consciously excluded these facts from scientific discourse, forming an exclusively sterile, poster-like image of the Soviet military commander. However, real archival documents from the main political directorate and the SMERSH counterintelligence organs demonstrate that the high-ranking generals operated within a specific domestic culture, where immense power and access to scarce resources gave rise to deep contradictions with the moral norms proclaimed by the state. An analysis of this shadow side of the war allows us to see the real price of victory, which consists not only of strategic miscalculations and logistical crises, but also of the most complex socio-psychological processes that occurred within the most closed structure of Soviet society, the active army.